Hello, welcome to the Q&A Cafe, which I'm proud to say is in its 15th year. And while we are the only talk show in a bar, as it happens today, we're actually in the studio because it's August and the bar that we use is closed for the month. And so welcome to the DC Cable Studios. And I'm really, it's funny, this is an interview we've been trying to do for a long time. Our guest is Johnny Holliday. Welcome, Johnny.
Thank you,
Johnny
Carol.
and
Thank you.
I think we started working on this interview back in the late winter, didn't we?
Exactly.
And now here we finally are.
Finally.
We hoped for a moment to be able to do it out at the ballpark, but we couldn't get the ballpark, so we brought the ballpark to the DC Cable Studios. We actually have not one, but three Danny Espinosas here. I don't know what that means. I'm sure that means the next time
he's triple important is
yes,
what it means.
well, the next time you see Danny Espinosa, please let him know
I'll let
that
him know, yeah.
he was well represented when we did this interview. But thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
And this is the middle of August. I'm using that timestamp because while this interview will air for years long after we're here, I always think when you're talking about baseball, it's important to talk about what time of year it is.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is sort of the lead up to the last stretch, right?
Yeah, this is the last couple of months of the season in baseball are the most important.
Yeah.
Guys are trying to get to the playoffs. Guys are thinking about rotations for the playoffs, who they may play, and excitement is like a fever pitch for most ball clubs that are competing. The ones that aren't,
That's right.
ballparks are empty.
Right.
But Nationals Park, as anybody knows out there, they're packed almost every single night.
And the trading period is done, right? So everybody's got the roster they're going to take
Rosters
through
are
the
set. Now,
end.
September 1st, you can bring up different players from the minor leagues. The rosters are expanded.
But it's your minor leagues, right?
Right.
It's your farm teams.
Your
you're
farm
not
clubs,
you're not trading players from
No.
other teams anymore.
No, can't do that.
So
no.
this is pretty much the ones you brung.
Yeah.
And this is who you're hoping you can take to the championship with you.
Yeah, and I think what Dusty Baker and this ball club has done, and Mike Rizzo and the Lerner family, they put together a tremendous a ball club with young guys, veteran guys, guys who've been to the playoffs before, guys that are just making an impact, coming off the bench. He's got the whole package, and having Dusty Baker here has been a major, major step, I think, in the success of this franchise, because he's been there as a manager, an all-star, a player, and he knows what it takes to get to the World Series. He knows what it takes to win a division. He knows how to manage players and keep everybody happy. Doesn't have a lot of rules in this team. And you can see the effort that the guys...
How different from the last guy?
Well, the last guy, I mean, everybody has their own different way of managing. Matt Williams' way didn't work.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Dusty Baker's way of doing things is working and working
Is Dusty
extremely
maybe
well.
because of his age and his background, or just personality?
I think it's personality.
He makes me think a little bit of of Davy Johnson.
There's a lot of similarities between Dusty and Davy, exactly. Both are very personable, very outgoing, both have a good sense of humor, and both, I think, have the respect of the young guys that play for them.
Yeah, that's
And
it, isn't it?
Yeah, if you're Steven Strasburg or Gio Gonzalez or Anthony Rendon, and you look, and even Trey Turner, 23, 24 years old, and you look at Dusty's resume, what he's done, you've got to sit back and say, wow. I think I'm going to do it the way Dusty says, because he knows. And it rubs off on these players, and the result is what you see in the standings, first place.
He said something in an interview, and I think you'll appreciate this. I know I do, because I'm on the other side of 25. And
Barely.
I think he's 67, and he said I may be old in numbers, but I'm not old in mind.
Right.
And I thought that's it right there. You
Well,
know?
when he got introduced as the manager of the Nationals, we were doing a live telecast that particular day on his announcement, and I'm going to do the interview with him. So I'm sitting there. So he walks in the clubhouse, looks at me, and he comes over and he puts his arm around me. He's, Dusty's 6'4", 6'5". And he said, I guarantee you, look around this clubhouse. I guarantee you and I are the only guys in this clubhouse. and probably the only guys in the Nationals organization that were both at the Monterey Pops Festival. Now, where's that coming from, right? And I said, you were there? Yeah, I was there, 1967 in Monterey, California. And he's buddies with the late Jimi Hendrix, and he was there. He was a high school student in Sacramento, California. And I was a disc jockey in San Francisco at the time, and I was sent down there to cover the Monterey Pops Festival, and he was there. Now, how about that for opening up a lot?
I love that, though.
Yeah,
I love that, though, and that's what the young guys need.
That's right.
The young guys, girls, any place, any operation, any workplace needs the old guys and the young guys.
Yeah, that's right.
Another little bit of trivia about Dusty Baker that you probably know, and I didn't until recently. He does live in California when he's not here. He owns a winery. He's in the wine business.
Oh,
he produces Baker wine.
He's a connoisseur of so many different things.
Yeah, so he doesn't need this.
No,
he just likes doing it. He likes doing it.
But I think he likes the challenge.
Right.
And he's been away from baseball for 3 years, and he got kind of pushed out unceremoniously in Cincinnati. And I think that bothered him because he knew he could manage. He knew he could handle young guys. He knew what the success, how to get from point A to point B. And this is a major challenge to show those guys out there, hey, I can do it at 65, whatever he is, 67 years old, and keep doing it and do it successfully.
Well, you could probably say the same about you. You don't really need to be working for Masson right now and doing the pre and post game show how many nights of the week? I mean, you're working most
every single night.
You're just like somebody. You are somebody on the team.
Yeah.
You're working because you're working even when they're away. You may not travel with them, but you're still doing
in the studio,
the show. But
right.
you don't need to be doing this, but you love it.
I
You
love
can't
it.
imagine not working, can you?
I can't. I really can't. I think as long as you enjoy something, and I've been fortunate for a lot of years to be
Because you're on
doing
the other side of 25 too.
26 and counting. And I think it's you do it, and I see friends of mine in my age bracket who retired early at 60 or 55, whatever. And I'm seeing them when I go to visit the nursing home that they're in.
Yeah.
Because they retired too early. I think you have to keep stimulating, if you can, health-wise, and knock on wood. You keep working, and if you don't enjoy it, then you get out.
Yeah.
Or if you start to slip, if you can't look in a field and say it's 2nd and 5 at the 25-yard line, and it's the 35-yard, maybe time to back away. Or if you can't follow the action, if you can't, in theater, remember a script or a song, then it's time to. But I haven't got to that point yet. I hope I never, I mean, I will sooner
How do you
or later.
test? Do you test yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I really do.
Yeah,
I really
that's
do.
important.
I listen, I watch, and if I see myself going a certain way or depending upon a certain line or a certain crutch that I use, I get rid of it. I don't want to do hanging on certain things to get out of a certain situation. That's not the way I want to do it.
And you are sort of professionally married, and I don't mean the wife you have at home, but I mean you every night. You're like a married couple. Every night you do the show together. What's the dynamic? How do you work together? Did you know you were going to be thrown together? Was that part of the plan? I mean, I think you started this in 2008, right?
We started 10 years ago. This is our 10th year.
You started, how close to when the stadium opened? The same time?
We started, no, they were at RFK.
Okay, so
Yeah, that was the last year.
you were already in place for when the
Right.
new stadium opened.
And they called me and they said, we'd like to talk to you about the pregame show. I said, I'm not interested because I do
And where
theater.
were you at the time? You do
I'm doing
Maryland. You do
football and basketball.
You're pretty set.
Pretty set. And then in the summertime, I do theater. So I didn't want to give that up. And so Chris Glass, the executive
But
producer.
Mickey Rooney came calling and said,
Well, Mickey
let's
Rooney
put on a show.
Mickey Rooney had been calling earlier, yes. Yeah. And so
But
he
Masson
said,
calls, and let me just say one other thing too, because I think this is also fascinating. Masson was just getting formed also.
just started.
So
yeah.
you're there. You're at the intersection of the beginning of so many
Right,
things.
exactly.
You tell the story.
And there's a familiarity feeling with me and some of the people that I'd worked with before at the old home team sports. So I knew the guys. I knew Chris Glass. I knew what kind of person he was, what he wanted to do. And he said, we're going to try to get you lined up. In fact, I think it's going to be Ray Knight. I said, Ray Knight, the manager of the Reds, all-star? Wow. Never met the guy. So he comes up and we have one rehearsal. We go in the studio. I think it's the night before we did our first show. And everything is on prompter.
And you're the one with the experience.
Right.
of
Now,
that kind.
But Ray had done ESPN.
Okay.
He'd been in ESPN.
All right. So he had a little bit.
Yeah,
He had a
7
little
years
bit.
with Chris Berman. So I said, I don't know about you, Ray, but I don't want to use the prompter. He said, let's get rid of it. So we did the rehearsal off the top of my head, off the top of his head. He had no idea what I was going to ask him or lead him with. Same as today when we do the show.
And you knew you were auditioning for pre and post game. You weren't going to be play-by-play.
This wasn't an audition. This was
You were
the
getting the
rehearsal.
job.
I had the job.
But
yeah.
you knew it was for pre and post game.
Yeah, pre and post, not play-by-play.
Right.
Unless Bob Carpenter took off.
Right.
Then I filled in for Bob. So we did the rehearsal, and the producer says, so you guys have never worked together? I said, no, we never have. This is going to be interesting. There's a certain something there. Well, I don't know what it is, except we like each other. We play golf together. We eat together. We go places together. We talk every day.
Well, but you didn't then. I mean,
No,
the magic was there, and it's just the friendship was meant
But you
to
know
follow.
what it was, Carol? I'm the setup guy. He's the guy with all the baseball experience.
So you're the straight man.
I'm the straight guy. All I did was pitch high school baseball and have the record to this very day of most hit batters in the on-deck circle. And, lost a lot of games, was wild. That's my baseball experience.
Yeah.
He's the expert. So what he says, everybody believes, because he's been there. Hitting coach, manager, all-star, third baseman, everything. And I think that's what makes the show so magical, that people can tune in. I set him up, and he has no notes.
Right.
Everything is right up here.
But you have to understand what he's saying for it to work.
Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely.
So you've got to
yeah.
be complete. So how do you? I want to know the behind the scenes of the show. I mean, I want to know how you prepare for it.
I can get you a pass up there some night.
I love that, actually.
You can come in.
But I mean, do you just walk in, sit down, and do it, and operate? Nobody does that, do they?
We have a meeting, like you have a. We have a meeting, and for 1 hour we go over
with a producer.
Here's segment 1, segment 2, segment 3. And there are bullet points, but there's no way for me to intro him unless I come up with it. So I listen to what he has to say, and I feed off his answers to go to the next subject.
Yeah.
So we do have 3 or 4 on segment 1, segment 2, segment 3, and that's how we do it. And I hope it comes off good, because we really.
Oh God, I think it's
we really enjoy it.
The studio audience here would be cheering with me.
Yeah, they would be screaming.
They
yeah.
would be.
Yeah.
We'll put that in later. We'll put that in post. But so where do you two go during the game?
When we're at the stadium, we're up in the press box.
So you physically leave your little stage that's there
Out there
at
at center
the
field, when you
entrance.
come in the center field gates, that's where we are. We go upstairs.
You hustle upstairs
to the press box. Ray charts every pitch of the game. He wants to see. Sometimes he's behind home plate to see the action of the pitcher and so forth. And I do the highlights. I keep track of who scored, how they got on base. He keeps pitch location, a number of pitches. He keeps many more stats than I do. And then in the 7th inning, we go back out to the set.
And you do a little break-in.
And the producer says, here's what we're going to do for the post game.
Okay.
Now, if the game is tied, we have a thing called a defining moment.
Yes.
He said, we'll play it by ear, and I'll feed you what we're going to do when we're on.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is flying by him telling me here in the IFB what
What's
we're
it
gonna
like
do.
when the weather's terrible? You just muscle through?
Yeah, we go through it.
Because
yeah.
you're out there in the elements.
Oh, yeah.
And when
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a rain delay, do you?
It's a rain delay. We come on and we do like 10 or 15 minutes in the rain delay.
You punt as long as you can,
exactly.
and then
Bob and FP do the same thing up top in the booth. Yeah.
Right. And then when the team's traveling, where do you go?
We go to a studio, and it's up north of Baltimore.
Exactly, because that's where Masson is.
Yeah, it's where Masson is. The Orioles have one studio. We have the other studio with the same office space.
It was so funny last night, because I was wondering if all 4 of you, you're matched.
At the ballpark?
Would do because the O's and the Nats are playing each other as we
Right.
do this week. And what do they call it? A Beltway series,
Yeah.
right? I got that.
Right.
And I wondered if they'd switch you off so that the Baltimore viewers would see you and Ray, and then the DC viewers.
Well, they used to do that. I think the first couple of years they thought it would be interesting to mix up
confuse
the
us.
crews, but our fans, our Nats fans,
Yeah, we
they
want
want to
you.
see us
Right.
Orioles fans want to see those guys.
Yeah.
So we don't do that anymore.
So I think a very interesting thing about Masson that a lot of people probably don't know, and I just alluded to this earlier. Masson was formed when the Nats were formed,
Right.
Because a whole lot of the big business of the MLB and city having a team are the television rights.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was always this great fear that if Washington had a team, Baltimore would lose a lot of viewers and a lot of butts in the seats, which I think has not proved to be the case.
Hasn't been the case, no.
But Masson was for Mid-Atlantic Sports Network.
Right.
And the Orioles actually own most of it. Am I
Right.
correct? And the Learners, who own the Nationals, have only about 10% of it, but that will grow over time.
I don't even get into that. I
I
don't
know, and
have-
you probably
Yeah,
shouldn't. But
yeah.
but in effect, the Orioles are your bosses.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Even
yeah.
though you're all about the Nationals.
Yeah, but I think, the thing I like about it is the fact that while we didn't have baseball, people were going up to see him in Baltimore. I did it all the
Yeah.
time. I'd go up there, and in fact, I did Orioles games with John Lowenstein on HTS. And then I think it's good for both cities. You see the National League, you see the American League.
Yeah.
So you got a little bit of this, and when the Orioles are out of town and we're home, they can come down, and vice versa. When we're out of town, our fans can go up there.
My sister-in-law, Martha Kumar, she's a baseball nut, so she now just has more teams because she was always devoted to the O's. She loves the Nats.
Yeah.
She does both. I used to have season tickets way back when to the old stadium that was on the other side of Baltimore.
37th, right?
Yeah, whatever. What was
Yeah,
the name
yeah,
of it? Who
37th.
remembers the name of it? Does
Memorial
anybody-
Stadium.
Memorial Stadium. Used to go out there to see.
Yeah, me
Actually
too.
saw a World Series there.
Me too.
And then didn't really do the O's so much once it was Camden Yards because I don't know why.
Camden
but
Yards is a great ballpark.
I
mean,
know,
a
but
great.
I love Nats Park. I
Yeah.
really.
This is just as good.
Yeah, no, it's got
Maybe
it's
better in
it's
some
it is
areas,
a very
yeah.
very special place, and this team has been incredible. It's been incredible,
Yeah.
and but it's frustrating that they make it to the playoffs, but they don't make it.
This could be a different year this year.
So what's going to make
Mark
the
my
difference?
words. I think the experience factor. As we talked today, it's an 8.5 game lead over the Marlins. The Mets that everybody picked to win this year, fading fast. They've had a lot of pitching problems, but I just think that there's something magical going on, and the tough thing is to get past the Cubs.
Yeah.
Because the Cubs have the best record in baseball.
So is that our biggest threat?
Well, you got to beat them to get out of the division series, and that's going to be tough. But I think once they can do that, it's not how good you are; it's how good you're playing in that series.
Yeah.
You could get hot and go through it and knock off the favorites,
Yeah.
or you could just collapse.
I would love to see it happen for all
Me too.
kinds of reasons, but I'd like to see it happen for Ryan Zimmerman.
Oh, yeah.
I was there for the opening night of the stadium and his home run and the way he's been he gave himself to that team in the city. And also at the other end of at the bad boy end of the spectrum, I'm a huge fan of Jason Worth, and I just, I get so impressed with how he just keeps finding it.
Yeah.
Just when you think
And with
he's run out
Jason,
of-
Jason's 37 years old.
That's what I mean.
That's why it'd be so nice to have him,
Yeah.
on that podium celebrating a world championship,
Yeah.
and the same for Ryan. I mean, Ryan is one of my favorites. I
Yeah.
mean, there's not what's there not to like about this guy?
Right.
Everything, the way he carries himself. Even though he's injured a lot.
Yeah, he comes
trying
back.
to. We would just love to have him have one season without having any injuries. Just go through it.
I don't know that that's baseball. I mean, we're going through it with Bryce Harper
Yeah,
right
Bryce,
now.
exactly.
And
With Strasburg.
Strasburg. Which, again, I mean, it was interesting reading about you. We're gonna work our way back in your life, but one of the very interesting parts of your formative years was being a DJ, and you were based in San Francisco, and you got to meet all the whether it was Janis Joplin or Grace
Yeah.
Slick or the Rolling Stones. But here you are now in your baseball life. And you're working with Steven Strasburg and Bryce Harper. I mean, within the sports and baseball world, 20 years from now, who knows what we'll be saying about Bryce Harper, and here you are.
That's right.
He's part of your daily life. And you were already there when he came in as a very young man, and Strasburg. They came in the same year. That was Stan Kasten's legacy to the team, among other things.
That's right.
But Talk about watching them grow and what's it like being around them, and because you get to see them in intimate and private ways.
I'll tell you an
that we
interesting
don't.
story about Bryce and I. When he first came up, he was kind of like the fair-haired boy with the sky's the limit, and didn't do a lot of interviews. Not a lot of people spoke with him. He was kind of like not off limits, but they were very guarded and protecting him. And one day I'm in the tunnel leading back to the clubhouse, and I was talking to a guy named Christian Garcia, who they just called up from the minor leagues, who's from Miami, like I am. And we were talking about our respective high schools. So Harper goes by, and he says, "Mr. Holliday." I look around and see who's talking to. "Oh, me?" He said, "Can I talk to you when you're done?" I said, "Sure." And this is like 3-4 years ago. And so I said, "Yeah, sure." Now, first thing I'm thinking, what did we say about him last night? What got back to him that he's not happy with? So he says to me, "You broadcast all of Lynn Bias's basketball games." And I said, yeah. "Wow, what was he like?" And I said,
God, he wasn't
"Bryce,"
around long enough for us to know.
I said,
was
"Bryce,
he?
he passed away in '86. You weren't even born." He said, "But I've read up about him, and I've done all the research of what kind of was he better than Michael Jordan?"
And this was, just in case somebody doesn't know, Len Bias was
Len Bias.
the superstar of
University of Maryland.
University of
Yeah.
Maryland, and he had signed with a team.
Boston Celtics.
Right, and his career was sky's the limit, and he died from a drug overdose.
Exactly.
Wasn't it? I don't know if it was
couple of nights
cocaine or
afterwards,
crack or
yeah.
something. Yeah, but it was just.
And all of a sudden,
awful.
Carol, when I'm talking to Bryce Harper, I'm not talking to a Major League Baseball player.
Talking to a kid.
I'm talking to a 19 or 21-year-old kid. And I thought that was amazing that he would. And then I found out he was a big fan of Mickey Mantle.
Oh, that's what makes all our hearts.
So I said to
because
Bryce,
we
I
think
said, "Bryce,"
that might lead him
I
to
said,
leave
"I'll
us.
have to give you a copy of the last interview I did with Mickey Mantle." He goes, "What?"
Oh my God.
He said, "What else are you going to tell me?" I said, "Read my book, okay? It's in
Yeah,
the book."
exactly.
I said, so I gave him a copy of the interview I did with Mickey Mantle when Mickey was coaching with the Yankees. Well, thought he was going to go nuts when he got that.
Yeah.
You know?
You mentioned the Mickey.
One story about Strasburg?
Yes, I want to know about Strasburg.
Strasburg is very quiet.
You know what Tony Kornheiser calls Strasburg?
What?
The orchid.
The orchid.
The orchid, because he's so special and
Yeah.
so precious and
Orchid.
so fragile.
You know what we call Tony Kornheiser? You got a 7-second delay on this show?
No, but no, I'm a huge fan of Strasburg. So
Yeah.
yes, go.
Nice, I tell you, one of the sweetest kids. And we got to talking one day. At the end of the season, this was last year, I said, can we do I put a request in for a pregame interview. So he comes out, and you can tell he's not happy about it, okay? And I said, before we start this, let's don't talk about your career, your arm, how you pitching. Let's talk about the family. You got a little baby.
I saw that interview.
And
he loved
goes,
that.
He goes, wow, first time I think I've ever seen him really smile.
He was very very at ease and natural.
Exactly. And I said, then we talked about how I said, how's the giving up the tobacco thing going? Now, I didn't know that in a press conference earlier, Tony Gwynn had died, from throat cancer from tobacco use. And Strauss is trying to get off of it. And somebody asked him about that in the pregame interview before I did it with him. And he said, I'm not going to go there. He bit off the reporters' heads. I'm not talking about that. So when I brought it up to him, I had no idea it was off limits. I said, how's that? You're trying to give it up? He said, and he was honest. He said, yeah, it's not easy, but I'm doing the very best. And he was very nice about it. Then I found out later on somebody had gone that route with him, and they got all upset. But he is such a nice guy.
He should get together with the president because he's always trying to quit too. Maybe they can start a little club.
Not easy.
Not
yeah.
well, I did it, so I know.
I think he could probably get a visit to the White House if he wanted to go there.
I bet he could.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're very different personalities. These,
Totally.
and they are our two superstars, and they came in
Totally.
at the same time, and they were like legends when they arrived.
Right.
And
you know how tough it is to handle that?
I can't even
at
imagine.
that age?
Yeah.
And to have all the adulation, all the focus on you every single minute of every single
and think
day.
of how Strauss came out of the gate too. His first game, it was
14
just,
strikeouts.
It was epic.
Yeah, exactly.
Which almost sets, of course, it sets the bar even higher.
Right. And you can't do that every game. No way.
No.
And then if he has 9 strikeouts, I'll give him to strike out 14.
Yeah.
You know.
So what about the way, over the years, the politics of the Strasburg shutdown? When, what was it, 2 years ago?
I think it was the right move, myself.
Yeah,
I
but
think Ray did too.
It's always been very interesting to me that like a narrative had to be written around it, because it was never it won't go away until we win.
Yeah, exactly.
When we win the series, then nobody will ever ask again.
But you know, if he had continued to pitch and something happens to the arm, then they're going to say, well, why did they shut him down?
Yeah.
Why would they let him pitch with a bad arm? But they shut him down at the right time, and it turned out to be the best move in retrospect.
But it will be debated
Sure.
forever. I mean,
sure.
it's
You're not going to make everybody happy.
No,
No
well,
way.
not
And
fans.
you can
And not
question,
sports writers.
Yeah, you can question every move that a manager makes and say, why is he doing that?
Yeah, well,
because
so
he's the manager.
Well, speaking of managers, I don't know how free you are to tell me your true thoughts. I won't put you too much on the spot, but you have.
Test me.
You've been through Caston. Well, not presidents. You've been through 2 presidents, Caston and Rizzo. And then managers. Bowden was already gone when you came in. So who was your first?
Manny Acta.
Manny Acta. He was popular. Right?
Oh, yeah, love the guy. Jim Riggleman.
Who just like said, no, I'm not getting on the bus. I'm out of here.
Yeah, and
Right.
Riggleman, a local guy that was terrific. Davey
Yeah.
Johnson was terrific.
Yeah.
And, you know, they all have the same approach, I think. Some had more personality than others.
Right.
Certainly Dusty has a lot, like you mentioned with Davey Johnson. Matt Williams wasn't that
What's
tough
interesting about Williams, he ended up being very controversial. He had a second year that was bad, but his first year wasn't bad.
Right. But I think the second
Wasn't he
year,
manager of the year his first year?
was.
Yeah, so I mean,
He
that
was.
doesn't happen by accident.
But I think the second year, the connecting with the guys in the clubhouse, that something was missing.
Right, right.
And I'll never forget, I asked Craig Stammen, as the season was winding down, one of my good buddies, I said, what's happening? And you could feel the unrest, and the newspapers were just hammering him. Has he lost the clubhouse? And Craig just looked at me and smiled and said, when are we going to play golf again?
But
And
Davey
that said
has the
something right there.
clubhouse.
Oh, yeah. Davey had it, yeah. And you got to have, if you don't have the clubhouse, then you're not going to manage.
So do you spend much time in the clubhouse? Or is that
No.
really not?
No. They have an open period in there for the media,
Yeah.
which is from this time to this time, 45 minutes, and you can go in and do your interviews and
Yeah.
chat and so forth. And you go, of course, after the ball games. But by the time we get off the air and get down there, everybody's gone.
Do you decide, or does your producer decide, or does the team decide who because you always interview one player. How's that decided?
I ask for them. Yeah.
And you won, and do you ever get turned down?
No.
So the
Never had
player,
that.
even if they don't want to do an
Well,
interview, they'll
a
still
lot
do
of
it.
times, I'll stay away from a guy if he's not.
If you know he hasn't had a good game.
Yeah, stay away from him. I won't go that way.
Yeah.
Or if we have something scheduled, he's had a bad night the night before, I'll wipe it out and say we'll catch him another time. I don't want to put him through that.
Do you think that it's important that a manager was at one time a player? Because Dusty was a player, Matt Williams
Davey Johnson was a
Davey
player, Matt
Johnson.
Williams. Well, they were all players.
Is that the best way to come up toward? I mean, are there managers who were never players that are?
I
of
don't
any
know of
consequence?
one. No,
Okay,
I mean you
so you think
had to
it's-
play the game at some level. Some never got to the major leagues that are managers, but
Yeah.
I think if you've got major league experience as a player, it helps you immensely as a manager.
So let's go back a little bit now. Let's go back to Miami, where you're from. You changed your name.
Correct.
What was your
Well, I
name?
didn't change it.
Okay, what was your name?
The name, my full
Your
legal
birth name.
John Holliday Bobbitt.
And somebody said
Holliday
to
is
you,
the middle name.
and this was I'm not going to go into the news event that where your name's involved. But if you're old enough to know, you know.
Let's cut the
We're
conversation
not going
right
to. We're
now.
going
Yeah.
to.
Just cut it right there.
But who? Somebody had to say to you, or
Yeah,
did you think you wanted
When I
to
got
change
my
it?
first job in Perry, Georgia,
On the air.
on the air, my grandfather had introduced me to the local owner of the radio station up in Perry, Georgia. My grandfather had a drugstore in Unadilla, Georgia, the only drugstore. He said, I want you to meet my grandson. He's a disc jockey. And the guy in my grandfather's store says, really? Well, I'm looking for somebody to work at my station. I
Yeah.
said, I'm your guy. I'm 18 years old. I wasn't a disc jockey. I'd been entered into a contest.
You had chutzpah.
Yeah, exactly. So I went up and the guy said, here, read this. And I read he said, I'll give you $32 a week. Okay, he said, now your name is, I said, Johnny Bobbitt. He says, Johnny what? I said, Johnny Bobbitt. He says, Bobbitt? I said, Bobbitt. He said, do you have a middle name? I said, it's Holliday. He said, Johnny Holliday.
Yeah, perfect.
Let's go with that.
How'd you feel about that? Did you feel like you were giving up part of your identity?
My mother was thrilled. My father wasn't happy.
Yeah,
It was my
yeah.
mother's maiden name.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, so it all worked out pretty good, though.
And so you're in Georgia. Mm-hmm. Let's just do the map now. You go from Georgia to
Back to Miami.
Back to Miami.
Mm-hmm. Made the rounds of all the stations. I thought I was going to take the city by storm.
Were you on the air? Did you get on the air there?
Barely.
Barely.
Yeah, I went. There were 7 stations.
Because you know
at
that's
that
where
time.
Larry King got his start. Was in Miami.
I was on Larry King's show as a guest one night in Miami.
Yeah. How was Larry that night?
He was. We had 3
Rare
of us.
form.
Oh yeah, Johnny, how are you? You know, fine, Larry, fine. So I went to Miami. I went to I went to 6 stations. One was the African American Rhythm and Blues station. I didn't go there.
Yeah.
And so my father says, why not? I said, well, they're playing rhythm and blues and going for the African American. He said, you got nothing to lose. So I go in, and the receptionist says, what's up, kid? I said, could I talk to the program director? She says, how old are you? I said, 18. She says, you may be in luck. The program director's 20. So this kid comes out and he says to me, hey kid, come on back. So I go back, his name is Arnie Shore. So what do you got? I said, I have a tape of this show I did up in Georgia. Well, let's listen to it. So he puts it on and he says, hold on a second. So he brings his father in, who owns the station. The father says, how old are you? I said, I'll be 19 in October. Okay, hold on a second. Brings his partner in, listens to the tape. He said, are you willing to relocate? I said, yeah, sure. He said, we just bought a station up in Rochester, New York.
Oh my God!
And
this
is
definitely
April.
not Miami.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have never been past Perry, Georgia. Never seen snow.
Oh,
he said, we're
God.
going to take over in July. We think you'd be perfect for the morning show. We'll give you $75 a week. I said, wow.
That's big money.
In the meantime, we'll put you on here 2 hours a day to kind of give you more experience, which I needed. I mean, I had to be just terrible.
And this was at the Black R&B
Yep,
station.
Black
yeah.
R&B station. And that's the only station that gave me a shot. And I was on the air I was on from 10 to noon. I was on after TJ the DJ and before King Coleman.
Yeah. And do you remember who you liked playing? Do you remember the music?
Little Willie John, the Howlin' Wolf, Billy. I mean, I played all the stuff that they were playing, and I loved it. But I was on the air. I thought that was the greatest thing, and I'd call all my buddies in Miami and say, hey, you got to tune in WFEC. Where is it in the dial? Because they weren't listening to R&B music.
Yeah.
But that's when the music was changing.
So when you went up to Rochester, was it a completely different playlist, did you find?
Top 40.
Top 40.
Yeah, myself and the program director roomed together. And you might have known David Abramson.
I know the name.
Abramson Himmelfarb Advertising here in town.
Yep.
David was on our staff, and it was a top 40 station. It took us 6 months to become #1. Playing top 40
Those were
music.
great days in radio.
Oh, my God.
Those were the last days in radio.
I couldn't wait to go to work every day, to be creative. So I was there for a year and a half and then moved on.
When I was a teenager growing up in the D.C. area up by Mount Vernon, I couldn't wait to get in somebody's car in the afternoon just to push a button to a station to listen to music.
Exactly.
I mean, it was pre-satellite.
But you know, I think the disc jockeys in those days,
Yeah.
and when I was doing it, they really related to the audience. I mean, the kids could hang on to every word. You'd see them at record hops. You'd see them at public appearances.
Well, you did that.
I did all that. I
right?
wore the red coat and the whole
Right,
thing,
right,
you know, the
right.
hair slicked back. And
Yeah, I remember listening to WPGC, and I remember going to I lived for a while near Camp Springs, Maryland, if anybody knows where that is.
Sure.
And my school, perhaps it was even you who did the introduction, but my school had the Ronettes come and sing. And they were just on the road, you know, just working their way up my little nothing school in Camp Springs, Maryland.
But see, those were the days where they would do that. I had a record
That's how you moved a record.
Well, I had a record hop in Cleveland every Friday night, sponsored by Coca-Cola. We go to a different high
So we've
school.
now moved from Rochester to Cleveland.
Yeah, Cleveland.
We're getting around.
Getting around. I'm going Rochester, Cleveland. I'm going to go this way, and then back this way.
Yeah, but you're always going up.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the
true.
important thing.
And I remember once the RCA Victor promotion man called and said, "Where's your dance this way?" I said, "It's going to be at Solon High School." Okay. Can they get a piano? I got a guy named Neil Sedaka.
Yeah.
He'd like to do something live, not
Right,
lip sync.
right.
So we wheel out this piano. Here's Neil Sedaka doing like an hour for these kids. Breaking Up is hard to do. Happy birthday, 60. The next week, Tony Fisher, the song The Big Hurt. The next week, Bobby Rydell or
Right.
Bobby Vinton, all these.
But
for
then-
nothing. And we didn't pay them either.
Right.
Nobody got
No,
paid.
because everybody was just trying to move records. And,
That's right.
And so you get to San Francisco, which is
I
sort
went
of
from Cleveland to New York, and then
New York,
San
San Francisco. And from San Francisco, you came back here.
Yeah. Right.
And you worked for two iconic stations here, WWDC and then WMAL.
MAL,
And
yeah.
WMAL was the bomb for radio.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I remember my father listened to it all the time.
I couldn't
It was-
wait to get there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was the station. They had all the audience. They had the sports. They had the Redskins.
They had
the Capitol.
personalities.
Personalities.
Yeah, it may not have been quite. I'm sure you don't share this, but I was always a big Howard Stern fan. I still am.
He replaced me on WWDC. Totally different show, though.
Yeah, no, the Greaseman was a different kind of taste, but I tell you what I found out about Howard Stern that everybody has since come to know, because he's grown into a very successful broadcaster and entrepreneur, and we'd all like to have Howard Stern's money. But
That's right.
when I was a producer for Charlie Rose, we were going to have Howard Stern on the show, and I had to do a pre-interview with him. And I had this very fixed notion of Howard Stern, the Howard Stern who was on the air. And then I got on the phone with the real Howard Stern.
He's probably not like that, is he?
No, not at all.
Totally
It was
different.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
As a performance. you know?
Our friend Tony Kornheiser's the same way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, because Tony doesn't talk at all when you meet him in person.
No, exactly.
He talks on the radio. But I have become, Howard Stern was my journey into satellite radio. And if you look at Howard Stern's career path, it really does tell the story of what happened to terrestrial radio, which is now, I don't know what WMAL's numbers are, but they can't be anything like that.
They're in the tank.
To the extent that people listen to terrestrial radio now, it's all news. Mm-hmm. It's like WTOP,
right.
and maybe some sports. You still do sports radio.
Everything changes.
You still do sports radio, right?
Oh yeah, all the time.
But you did network radio
right,
in a big
ABC,
way.
28 years.
You did Olympics.
Right, Olympics, Sarajevo. I did everyone from 1984. When ABC had the rights. I did winter and summer, 84 until they lost the rights in 94, I guess it was, something like that.
When you look back at your career and you look at some of these things, and I'm sure you're dining out while the Olympics are going on, and somebody says, "Oh, don't you wish you were at the Olympics?"
I say I was.
Is there any of these remarkable things you've done? One of the most famous DJs in the country, shout outs from Murray the K. Your incredible career doing radio, network radio, announcing sports and other things. I have it written down here, you were the announcer for the Roger Miller Show, which I remember, my mother loved it. Hullabaloo, which I watched religiously as a girl. And This Week with David Brinkley, where I was a producer. There's just a diverse range of experiences. Does any of it make you sentimental, or do you just move on?
No, I think it makes me happy that I could be versatile, that I could do a lot of different things. I didn't want to be just a disc jockey. that's playing records for 4 hours a day.
And you never were.
And reading cards and giving away $5,000 to make people listen. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do more than that. I wanted to interact with the audience. That's why I came to Washington.
And that's how you got into acting.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, because you get
exactly.
that.
I wanted to do. I tell young people that want to get in this business now, be sure to be able to do a lot of things. Don't just go one avenue.
Right.
If that falls to the wayside, then you're dead. So I tried to be as versatile as I could, and I knew that the avenue of theater was going to be terrific because I had enough confidence. I can do that role. I can sing that song. I can learn that choreography. And if I'm doing a play-by-play game, I can do, you know, I had that inner confidence, not a cockiness, but a confidence that I think you have to have.
Yeah.
That when that light goes on, you perform.
That same chutzpah you had back in Georgia when you said that you could be.
I thought I could do anything, which I knew I couldn't at that time, but I thought I could.
I thought it was very interesting reading about how you came home and your family were taking down all your. Your vanity items and putting them up in the attic. And I thought, well, you know, that's kind of healthy. You just
so what are you doing this? This is no longer a memorial family room to you.
Yeah.
This is a family room, okay? We're going to take, if they want to see these cockamamie awards you got, they'll be up in the attic, okay? Wait, hold a second. They're all up there.
Obviously, whatever's going on at home works because you've been married forever, so that's a good thing. So we only have a couple of minutes left, and I would be remiss if I didn't take us up the road to College Park and to the University of Maryland and the Terrapins, which I will be upfront about. I don't know a whole lot about college football and whatnot, but I do know that it was a big change happened in Maryland a few years ago when they went to
the Big Ten.
The Big Ten.
Right.
How has that worked out?
I think it's worked out extremely well. They'd been offered a spot in the Big Ten some years ago, and the previous athletic director said, we're not interested. Well, the Big Ten's the best conference, the biggest conference in the country. So this time, Kevin Anderson, the AD, said, I think we can maybe do something together. They've got a network that covers the entire country. The ACC, which we'd been in for all those years, only covers the Carolinas, down in South Carolina, North Carolina.
Small ball.
Yeah, exactly. But compared to the Big Ten, the revenue is there. Your players are playing in front of 100,000 people. The closest would be Clemson in the ACC.
Yeah. You have to up your game.
Exactly. And it's taken it to another level, and they've really been able to hold their own with competition in basketball and football and field hockey. And
Have they found their footing with it now?
yeah.
Because I know initially it's...
Yeah, well, I think when you're the new guys in the block, all these other universities are so established with tradition. Ohio State's
size, parking.
Yeah, exactly. And you're playing against the big boys.
Yeah.
This is not small time football.
Right.
Best move they could have made. Now some of the fans aren't happy because you can't drive to a lot of games.
Right.
Like you could in the ACC. You go to Rutgers, Penn State, maybe Ohio State.
So you don't travel with the Nationals. Do you have to travel with Maryland?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you ever at home?
Oh yeah. I'll be home tonight. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well,
Late.
well, yeah, I guess the baseball. What you want is the baseball season to go to the end of October.
Right.
So
what happens is I take off every Saturday from the Nationals, and do Maryland football, and then on Wednesday night we have a coaches show, and in September I'll do the show with the coach. When they get in the playoffs, I'll have somebody fill in for me, and so I'll miss one Nationals game. And sometimes they're not even playing on Saturday in the playoffs.
Okay.
So it all works out.
So in our last minute, just a couple of quick questions. What's your favorite sport?
The one I'm doing.
Oh, come on.
No, really.
Really?
I mean, I think if I'm doing baseball, I love baseball. If I'm doing football, I think you have to have that approach.
Okay.
You can't say, oh, I love basketball more, then why are you doing football?
Can you just go to a game that you're not announcing and just sit back and watch it as a fan?
Oh, yeah, sure. I like that.
And
like that.
players who you've met, who, if you had to name one that made a difference or that you dine out on as often as possible?
Baseball, Joe DiMaggio,
Yeah, that's...
Mickey Mantle, working with Ted Williams, who was the manager of the Senators, doing a show with him every day.
I'll tell you when we're done how he threw me out of the dugout
Oh,
once,
really?
but yeah, but I was a girl.
Football, Joe Theismann
Yeah.
in football, Jim Plunkett. I mean, it's in basketball, Rick Barry, Elgin Baylor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, Sam Jones from
Goes
this
on
area.
and on,
Oh, it
right?
goes on and on, yeah.
But you know what? I bet a lot of them are saying the same thing about you. So there you go.
Be nice.
Thank you, Johnny.
I doubt. Thank you, Carol.
Thanks for doing this.
This has been wonderful.
I
Thanks
agree.
for having me
Yes.
with you. I
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much. And watch Masson, watch Marilyn Terrapins, and any place else you can catch Johnny. If he's playing at your local dinner theater, go there too. We'll see you on the next Q&A Cafe. Thank you.